Alright, the last couple of weeks we've been talking about the importance of doing good research and to think about the kinds of jobs and careers that you want to have. Hopefully by now you've got a good understanding of where you want to work, or at least the kinds of work that you want to do, and maybe you've taken some steps into looking at potential employers or potential clients that you can send your work to. This week, chapters 5 and 6 are going to talk about the importance of your portfolio and some of the interview skills that you'll need to have when you first meet with your clients or your future employers. Now, having a portfolio is kind of a mystical thing in the world of being an artist. Every artist needs to have a portfolio, but we never really talk about what needs to be in a portfolio. Or what do clients look for whenever they go to interview you? What do they need to see in your portfolio? Well, chapters 5 kind of deals with that. Things to put into your portfolio and things to be thinking about to talk about your portfolio. Now, there's two kinds of portfolios that you can have. There's the box portfolio and the book portfolio. The box portfolio is the kind of portfolio that gives you the ability to put in different sized objects. And these are really, really cool because you can have large posters and you can have small booklets, you can have three-dimensional objects. And when you go and meet with your clients, you can take these out and have this great little presentation, almost like taking things out of a lunchbox or opening up a Christmas present. I'll never forget one of the first students that I interviewed for their senior portfolio reviews. Her name was Rachel Browning, and Rachel loved handcrafted things. She liked yarn and paper, and she wanted her portfolio to reflect her love for handmade objects. So she made a box portfolio. And she brought this in, and it was beautiful. It had yarn embellishments to it. It was all handmade and handcrafted. It had her personal touch. And when she showed her work, she was able to pull it out, all different size things, all different things that she created. And it was a great, memorable experience. And so a box portfolio may be the kind of thing you want to consider for your own portfolio. Now, the downside to a box portfolio is that it's a little bit cumbersome. One thing about Rachel is that she's kind of a petite girl, and so when she brought in this huge box, it was very lumbersome and cumbersome for her to set it down onto the table and to showcase her work. And you may not always have that opportunity to spread out your work that way. So this is why the second option, the book portfolio, is often the most popular and the one that I actually recommend. With a book portfolio, this gives you the opportunity to print off your work and to bind it together in some sort of book fashion. Now, these kinds of books, I do want to stress, need to be updatable. You don't want to be a kind of book where it's bound together just once and you can't remove or add on new pages. You want the kind of book where it's almost a binder that you can open up, put new pages in, rearrange pages as necessary, and then be able to show that to your potential client as well. Regardless the kind of portfolio that you have, you always want to keep it updated. And so as you read through this, the book is going to give you some different methods for laying out your portfolio. Things like putting your skills first, or tailoring it to a client, or maybe just showcasing your best work first and then your second best last, and everything in between. For me, this is what I look for in a portfolio. First off, always show your best work. You never want to put anything into a portfolio you have to apologize for, or you think you could have done better, or maybe has mistakes. If that's the case, then it doesn't need to go in your portfolio. You need to rework it, or you need to revisit it, or just leave it out altogether. Never give yourself less than your best. The second thing I look for in a portfolio is, do you understand your work? Can you tell the work's story? Can you understand the work in a way that you're passionate about it and you can convey that passion to your potential employer? If it's the kind of thing that you did and you just didn't like it, or you put it in there because you think other people like it, or you got an A on it, well, that's not enough. It's got to be the kind of work that you want to be hired for, that you want your career to be. The final thing I look for in a portfolio is that you can always expand on it. Your portfolio should evolve with your career. As you create new work, put that new work into your portfolio and take out old work. As you get better with skills, go back and revisit old projects. Maybe there's a different way you could have done it. Maybe that you see something in your portfolio that you can do better. Your portfolio should be a living, breathing document and should always grow with you. In addition to the physical portfolio, have an online portfolio, an online presence. That could be a great segue and a great first meeting for clients to see the kinds of work that you're doing. And even an online portfolio doesn't always have to be your best work. It can show your progress. It can show things that you don't even have in your physical portfolio. Now, here's my task for you this week, and it's a personal challenge. Chapter 6 talks about some interview skills that you can start to develop when you meet with your clients. Usually, especially if you're not used to doing interviews, whenever you answer questions, it can come off very awkward, very robotic, and almost canned or staged. And you want to be able to answer questions fluid. You want it to sound like it's just a conversation that you're having. And when you talk about your work, you want that conversation to flow naturally. And so you naturally want to be able to understand your work and understand every aspect of it and be able to tell the details about it. So in chapter 6, there's this method called the STAR method. STAR stands for the situation, the tasks, the actions, and the results. And STAR gives you a great method for talking about all your different portfolio projects in ways that flow naturally, and you can slow down and think about it. So let's take STAR first. S. Let's take S first in STAR. The situation. What was the reason that you created a project? Think of a project that you're really proud of. Was it for a client? Was it for a class? Did you work in a group? Were there some time constraints, or was there a budget constraint? What was the situation that you were brought in as a creative designer to solve that problem? Then you can move on to the T, the tasks at hand. Did you have to meet with a client and do interviews? Did you have to do research before you even began doing the creative process? Were there any kind of other information that you had to gather and compile together to get started on this kind of project? Any kind of tasks that were involved that maybe you didn't understand to begin with that you had to get better at? Then you can go to the A, the actions involved. Now this is where you can talk about the software that you used. Did you have to do any preliminary sketching? Did you have to do your own artwork or your own photography? How did it get printed? How was your artwork used? These are all the action verbs that go into the actual creation of the object or your project. And then finally end with the R, the results of the project. What did your client think about your project? What were some things that you learned from the project? Or how would you do it differently? Or what would you do if you had it under different time constraints or different budget constraints? STAR, the situation, the tasks, the actions, and the results. All of those are 4 things that you can use to think about the projects that are in your portfolio. So my task or my challenge for you is to look at your own work that you've done right now. Work you've done as a student in class, maybe personal projects you've taken on, or even projects that you've taken on for other clients. And what's good enough to go in your portfolio? Just pick your best works. Then apply the STAR method to each one of those works. As many as it is, there's no minimum or maximum number. But can you talk about it? Can you flow naturally and get a good understanding of your work? Can you explain it to your mom or to your friends or someone who doesn't even know what you do? If you can do that, then I guarantee you'll ace an interview. The rest of chapter 6 also talks about good correspondence. We talked about following up with an interview, sending out thank yous, making those one-on-one connections. These are the first steps in just starting your career. And having a portfolio is a major, major step to this. Then going in and acing the interview. After that, the next part of the book talks about what do you do when you get a job? What are some personal etiquette that you have to do, some professional things that you've got to learn and be able to do once you actually land and get your foot in that door and get the job that you want. So I'll see you next week, and we'll continue on learning to be a professional.